हेलो गाइस, मैं विजय कुमार गुप्ता। इस वीडियो में हाई स्कूल बायोलॉजी का नेक्स्ट वीडियो लेके आए हैं। इस वीडियो में हम जानेंगे रिस्पिरेशन। व्हाट इज रिस्पिरेशन, हाउ मेनी टाइप ऑफ रिस्पिरेशन, व्हाट इज द नेसेसरी respiration in our body, what type of respiration, what is mechanism of the respiration, etc. It is very important in our life and competitive exam and our board exams as like UP boards, ISSC boards and CBSE board etc. Okay, तो आइए we discuss in this video about respiration. Class 10th subject biology, topic respiration. Okay, respiration. We know that we occurs different type of works. It work complete by energy. It energy create in our cells known as powerhouse of the cell or mitochondria. So we will discuss in this topic what is the mechanism of the respiration and what is the reaction in respiration and why it is necessary our body. Okay student, respiration is the biological reaction, biological process in which exchange of gases between our environmental and body cells in organisms. Once again, respiration is biological process in organisms, exchange of gases between body cells and our environment. Okay student, respiration is the process in which organisms exchange gases between their body cells and environment. Okay, types of respiration. Types of respiration. There are three types of respiration. ठीक है, three types of respiration. Three types. One, external respiration. One, external respiration. External respiration means breathing. External respiration means breathing. ठीक है, external respiration complete into main process. Number one, inhalation, and second, exhalation. It means inhalation means take oxygen from environmental into our body cell. Take O2 from environment. इनहेलेशन में ये होता है कि ऑक्सीजन को हम एब्जॉर्ब करते हैं फ्रॉम एनवायरमेंटल इन आवर बॉडी. Okay. Next, exhalation means removal of CO2. Removal of CO2 from our body into environment. Remove CO2 into environment. Okay, note it. Second, internal respiration. Internal respiration. Internal respiration. Second step, internal respiration. In this process involves exchange of gases between our blood and body cell. Okay, in this type of respiration, exchange of gases between blood and body cells. Okay, it is known as internal respiration. इंटरनल रेस्पिरेशन में गैसों का एक्सचेंज होता है बिटवीन आवर बॉडी सेल एंड ब्लड थ्रू आवर ब्लड बाय हीमोग्लोबिन. ओके. इन थर्ड, सेलुलर रेस्पिरेशन. Cellular respiration. It is a long type of process. It is long type of process and main process in respiration. In this type of respiration, our food oxidize into CO2 and water, then release energy. The energy used in different type of our work in daily our life. Okay, breathing means only exchange of gas, only exchange of gas from environmental and our body, CO2 and O2. But in the internal respiration, the blood exchange between body cell and blood. But in the case of breathing, only exchange of CO2 and O2, absorb of O2 from environmental in our lungs, then CO2 removed from lungs into environmental. And internal respiration, the exchange of gas between blood and body cell. Then cellular respiration, it is a detailed and long process in the mitochondria of the cell. The food decompose, oxidize into CO2 and water. It is also depend present of oxygen or absent of oxygen. Then it is also divided into 3 types. We know that it. Breakdown of glucose by various pathway. Glucose, the formula of glucose C6H12O6. Okay. First process known as glycolysis. Glycolysis complete in cytoplasm. In cytoplasm. The glycolysis, in glycolysis, glucose converted into pyruvic acid. Pyruvic acid. The formula of pyruvic acid is CH3COCOOH. The formula of pyruvic acid is CH3COCOOH. It is complete into cytoplasm. This process is known as glycolysis. Then it is present of oxygen or absent of oxygen. It is also divided into three types based on oxygen present or absent. Absence of O2. Absence of O2. It is the main product C2H5OH ethyl alcohol plus CO2 gas. Then energy 27 kilocalorie or 2 ATP. In the microorganisms, the pyruvic acid convert into ethyl alcohol and CO2, then form 2 ATP of a bundle of energy or 27 kilocalorie energy. It is completely absent of oxygen in cytoplasm. It is also complete in cytoplasm. Okay. Then second, deficiency of oxygen. When the less amount of oxygen, mostly our muscle cell, less amount of O2 in muscle cell. When we do physical works more or exercise in our life, the accumulation of the lactic acid in our muscle cells, then we fatigue and we weak and incomplete of the energy. The main product of pyruvic acid convert into lactic acid and CO2. Lactic acid. The formula of lactic acid is CH3OH COOH and plus energy. Okay. The third step. In third step, presence of oxygen, presence of O2. The pyruvic acid convert into CO2 and water, then a large amount of energy also created. It is complete in mitochondria of the cell. Pyruvic acid convert into CO2 plus H2O plus 673 kilocalorie energy or 38 ATP in mitochondria. Okay, note it. the absence of oxygen, it is example yeast, known as fermentation process. What is fermentation process? In this process, the absence of oxygen, pyruvic acid convert into ethyl alcohol and CO2 and release a less amount of the energy. It is known as fermentation. The quantity of energy is 27 kilocalorie or 2 ATP in microorganisms as yeast. Okay, it is known as fermentation process. Note it. Then type of respiration based on absent or present of oxygen. Types of respiration based on presence of O2 or absence of O2. It is divided into two types. Respiration, it is two types. First, aerobic respiration. Aerobic respiration. Second, anaerobic respiration. Anaerobic respiration. The main factor of the aerobic respiration, first, it is complete in mitochondria. It is complete in mitochondria. Take place in presence of oxygen. It is only completed the presence of oxygen in the mitochondria. Next, end product CO2 and water. Okay. Next, more amount of energy release. More amount of energy release. 673 kilocalorie or 38 ATP. What is ATP? ATP is a bundle of energy. Okay. The full name of the ATP, adenosine triphosphate. Adenosine triphosphate. It is a main fundamental knowledge of the aerobic respiration. It is complete in the mitochondria. Only presence of oxygen gas. End product of the aerobic respiration is CO2 and water. Then more amount of energy release, 673 kilocalorie or 38 ATP. The reaction C6H12O6, then 6 molecule of oxygen. It is break down into CO2 plus water, 6 molecule CO2 and 6 molecule of CO2 gas. Then 38 ATP energy is released. It is complete or balanced reaction known as 6 carbon, 12 hydrogen, oxygen 6 to the 12 plus 8 18, 6 to the 12 plus 18 plus 6 total 18. It is the completely reaction in the aerobic respiration. It is completed in the mitochondria of the cell. So mitochondria is known as powerhouse of the cell. Note it. The main fundamental knowledge of the anaerobic respiration. It is complete. It is completed in the cytoplasm of the cell. It is complete in the cytoplasm of the cell. Second, it is complete absent of oxygen. Okay, take place absence of ऑक्सीजन. ठीक है. Anaerobic respiration completed in the cytoplasm of the cell and in absence of oxygen. Okay. Next, end product of the anaerobic respiration is C2H5OH or lactic acid या totally absent की totally if total oxygen absent the main product of the ethyl alcohol form lactic acid or lactic acid. Next, less amount of energy release about 27 kilocalorie or 2 ATP. Anaerobic respiration occurs in cytoplasm of the cell. It is mostly in microorganisms as like yeast or our muscle cells. When oxygen is deficiency, the end product of the anaerobic respiration is C2H5OH or ethyl alcohol or lactic acid and release less amount of energy. It is the 27 kilocalorie or 2 ATP of energy. ATP is the bundle of energy. The full name of the ATP is adenosine triphosphate. Note it. We can say that in the question, what is the main difference of the aerobic respiration and anaerobic respiration? When in the exams or test, the question, what difference between aerobic respiration and anaerobic respiration? So it is topic, it is note we can denote, donate it in the exam paper. Okay, noted. Next heading, human respiratory system. Passage of air through the respiratory system. Passage of the air through the respiratory system. It means air. In which way they enters our body and where went in our body and last where comes out. It is known as passes air through the respiratory system. Passes air through in respiratory system. It is a long time process. The first of all, air comes in our nostrils. Nostril means it is way. It is two types. It is two way in our nose. Which our gate is known as nostril. Then nasal passes. In this nostril, the enter air in a way. In a tube-like structure are known as nasal passes. Then nasal cavity in nose. The around area of the nose total, it is known as nasal cavity. Then air comes into pharynx. Pharynx in the ear. We know that study in the digestive system, alimentary canals. Okay. Then larynx. Larynx is also a box of music. The type of sound are depend on the larynx. Then trachea. In pharynx, it also divided into two ways. One is a windpipe, second is a food pipe. Food pipe only comes food materials, and windpipe also only air comes in windpipe. Okay, the trachea is a ring-like structure in the ear. Okay, then air comes is bronchi. Bronchi means when we discuss the structure of the lungs, it is our lungs. It is known as the heart. Then bronchioles, then alveolar. A small vase-like structure is known as alveolar. Then blood capillaries. It is okay. The lungs has one pair in our body. In the middle of the lungs, in this area, has a heart. Heart is a pumping of the blood into lungs and all over our body. Lungs covered by a thin layer membrane, it is known as pleural membrane. Okay. Note it. Mechanism of breathing. What is breathing? Breathing is the process in which exchange of gases from our body into environment. Only exchange of gas. No activities in this process. Only exchange of gas. It is two main types: inhalation and exhalation. Inhalation and exhalation. Exhalation. Inhalation means take O2 from environment. Exhalation means remove CO2 into environment. Okay, we know that some fundamental fact of the inhalation. One is next comes. Hello student, let us discuss about inhalation. In the first of all, during inhalation, the thoracic cavity expands In this means thoracic cavity, the upper case, it is known as thoracic cavity. Okay, and then lower cavity is known as abdominal cavities. And thoracic cavities expands when inhalation. In time of inhalation or taking oxygen, the thoracic cavity up. In the timing, the thoracic cavity up and left out. Ribs. How many pairs are ribs present in human body? Inhalation, the ribs left up, left out and left. जिससे in the area of the thoracic cavity increase the pressure of the low in the volume of the lungs. Then oxygen air enters in the our lungs. In this process, the thoracic cavity area increase and pressure down, diaphragm flat in size and pressure decrease. The air comes from environment in the our lungs. Okay. In the other side, exhalation means removal of CO2 from lungs. Okay. The opposite process of the inhalation in exhalation. In exhalation, the thoracic cavity contracts. Contracts means sikurna. In this process, the thoracic cavity contracts and become dump shape of the diaphragm. The diaphragm is left अब ये ओरिजिनल शेप डम शेप में. देन वॉल्यूम ऑफ द लंग्स डिक्रीज. जो वॉल्यूम था, एरिया था, वो डिक्रीज हो जाएगी एंड प्रेशर इंक्रीज. देन CO2 और एयर comes out from the lungs. Okay, note it. Then next heading, exchange of gases. Exchange of gases between alveolus and blood and tissue. We know that our air enters in the lungs. Then airs or oxygens enters in the alveolus, then blood, then tissue. Our discuss about it. And first, air reach NO2, reach in alveolar, then blood through vessels. O2 bind with HB, hemoglobin, RBC. O2 is released tissue. Second step, CO2 from tissue. CO2 released into blood cell. Then CO2 dissolved in blood. Then blood vessel in alveolar, CO2 alveolar sac. Then CO2 send out, CO2 send out through nostril, through nostril. Let us students discuss the exchange of the gas between alveolar, blood and tissue. The first step, air, when we reach in O2, air in alveolar. First of all, the air comes into alveolar, then blood through blood cells, then O2 bonded with the Hb hemoglobin. When the O2 comes into blood, the blood has a pigment known as hemoglobin. Hemoglobin combines oxygen to form oxyhemoglobin. Oxyhemoglobin, it is a temporary compound. After some times, O2 is released into tissue and Hb free comes into blood. Then second step, CO2 from tissue, which are present CO2 in the tissue. The CO2 also released into blood cell. Then CO2 comes dissolved into blood, which are present in the blood. After CO2 is dissolved into blood cell. The blood vessels in alveoli. Blood cells send into alveoli of the CO2. After some times, CO2 also released in the alveolar sac. Alveolar sac is a small drop-like structure. In structure, CO2 also comes in the alveolar sacs. After some times, they also CO2 sent out from nostril. It is the way of the oxygen or CO2. Okay, note it. Then we know about some terrestrial organisms and some aquatic organisms. In the case of terrestrial organisms, terrestrial organism. Terrestrial means landy organisms which are survive on the land. This type of organisms, as like we also buffalo, cows, goat, rat, etc. It is also absorb oxygens from environmental. But in the case of aquatic organisms, aquatic means the type of organisms lives in the water. Their body survives from their condition, their environmentals, and oxygen also dissolve in the water, and this type of organisms absorb dissolved oxygen from the water. Okay, in the plant, respiration in plant. Respiration in plant. Plant also respiration, but they process in easily than animals. It is three types of respiration present in plant case. First, instrumental respiration. Instrumental respiration. Instrumental. We discussed previous classes. The plant has stomata. These pore removal of extra water in the plants. This is known as transpiration. The water lossing in the form of water, so it is called transpiration. And CO2 or O2 also exchange by stomata in the case of plant. So this type of respiration are called stomatal respiration. Okay, next, it is mostly present in leaves. Second, lenticular respiration. Lenticular respiration. ये mostly stem है. It is completely mostly stem. Lenticle means it is small pores present in the stem of the plant. It also exchange of gases by lenticles. It is known as lenticular respiration. General surface of the roots. General surface of the roots. Roots also respiration because roots also has cells. Also use energy. In the roots, surface of the roots also diffused their oxygen from soil. This is respiration in plant case. Okay, note it. Next video, next time comes in front of you. Okay, goodbye.